As I said in my top 10 video game franchises video, I love the Sonic the Hedgehog series, so I figured I'd count down my top 10 favorites. Before we start though, I want to say that this is strictly my opinion. If you dislike any of the games on this list, that's perfectly okay. People have opinions. With that said, let's get started. Yes, I like Sonic and the Black Knight. Sue me. Sure, the concept of Sonic with a sword is weird, but execution is everything, and Sonic and the Black Knight had great execution. The motion controls were implemented really well, they were responsive, and in my opinion anyway, enhanced the experience, unlike another certain Sonic game on the Wii. Some of you might be surprised to see Sonic Generations this low, but since the game's released 2 years ago, I think it's gotten less enjoyable. When it came out, you bet I had a lot of fun with it. The levels were well designed, the controls were great, if a little awkward for classic Sonic, and the story, while it was bare bones, was still enjoyable. But as the months went on, Sonic Generations became less and less enjoyable for me. It's certainly not bad, but isn't as good as it was when it first came out. Here's another one that might surprise you, Sonic Rush Adventure. And before you ask, the original Sonic Rush won't be anywhere on this list. While most people didn't seem to like Sonic Rush Adventure as much as the first, I felt it improved greatly on the original game. Sure, the Johnny races were a pain in the ass, but those were a small part in the game. The stages were designed better, the music was better, and it even felt like the controls were better. Also, how can anyone dislike a game that has this theme in it? The second of only 2 Sonic games on the PSP, Sonic Rival is not only one of my favorite Sonic games, but one of my favorite PSP games. While it's essentially a racing game, the levels are all well designed and the game is just fun. The items, while limited, are pretty fun to use, and if you use them immediately upon getting them, you'll almost always win. And you can play as Metal Sonic, and that's always a plus in my book. I'll be honest here. I hate Sonic 4 Episode 1. I'll go into more detail at a later date, but for now I'll just leave it at that. So when I heard Sonic 4 Episode 2 was coming out, I didn't have high hopes. But I did buy it when it came out, and by the end of Sylvania Castle, I was having way more fun than I did with the entirety of Episode 1. The controls were more responsive, the visuals looked less like plastic, the level design was better, and the physics didn't suck. The special stages were worse, unfortunately. There were another half-pipe special stage, because we haven't seen that way too many times. At least there wasn't any more of this, though. One of the only games actually worth playing for the Sega CD, Sonic CD is often praised as one of the best Sonic games ever made. Hell, ScrewAttack.com even named it the best Sonic game ever made a few years back. While I don't think it's that good, it's still pretty good. For the most part, it's still a standard Sonic game, but there are some new things, like the Super Pilot, which hasn't returned in a main series console game since. Some might argue that it's overrated, and that's fine, but personally, I love Sonic CD. Probably the most unexpected entry on this list, especially with how high it is, Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 is really fun. Sure, it has a lot of glitches, but I only really run into them if I'm trying to cause them. But that's not why it's this high on the list. Like I said, I think Sonic 06 is really fun. People complain all the time about how slow Sonic is in this game, and while he is slow, his speed works just fine for the environments he's in. Same with Shadow and Silver. The story, while horribly written and put together, is fun to ridicule all the way through. Sometimes the camera is a little weird, but for the most part it works fine. The mock speed sections are kind of annoying on your first playthrough. After my first time through, the only mock speed section that consistently gave me trouble was Kingdom Valleys. And even then, that was only for a little while. Now I can get through it pretty easily. If there's one thing that everybody seems to love about Sonic 06, though, it's the soundtrack. Sonic games, no matter how bad, always seem to have good soundtracks. I do have some problems with it, though. I don't think Crush 40's version of All Hail Shadow holds a candle to Magnify's version from Shadow the Hedgehog. Sonic 06 also really loves the song His World. It plays all the damn time in the game. It plays on the title screen. An acoustic version plays every time you finish a level. It's the invincibility theme. It plays in Sonic's credits. It plays in Shadow's credits right after All Hail Shadow. It plays in Silver's credits after Dreams of an Absolution. And by the end of the game, I'm absolutely sick of His World. Thankfully, though, there are 3 or 4 different versions that never play in the game. But the absolute worst song in the game is Sweet, Sweet, Sweet. Yeah, the ending theme from Sonic 2. Sonic 2's ending theme was awesome, probably the best ending theme in Sonic history, but Sonic 06 completely butchers it. It adds these really annoying lyrics and is barely recognizable as the same song. Aside from these complaints, though, the soundtrack is really good. Dreams of an Absolution is one of my favorite Sonic songs ever. Mephiles' Whisper is an amazingly creepy theme for the villain Mephiles the Dark, and his boss themes are equally creepy and awesome sounding. Despite how many people really hate this game, I love it, and have loved it since the first day I played it 3 years ago. Now we're getting into the big leagues. Sonic 2 is often considered the best Sonic game of all time. Hell, it's not only the best-selling game on the Genesis, but the best-selling Sonic game of all time. And it definitely deserves that. Sonic 2 took everything from the original game and made it better. Better graphics, better music, better controls, better level design. The Spin Dash was introduced, which added even more speed to the game. Almost every single level is fun to play through, as they're designed incredibly well. You're rewarded for skill in stages like Aquatic Ruin, as if you're good enough, you can avoid the water altogether. Sonic 2 also had a pretty strange, but good, commercial.
Now, when you buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1, you'll get Sonic 2 absolutely free. Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains, embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too. This free Sonic 2 is a $54.99 value. You get 2 Sonics for the price of 1. Sonic 2 fits easily into any tackle box. Made from a space-age polymer plastic for years of family fun. And pets love it too. Buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1 and get Sonic 2 free. Act now. Wiener Dog Sweater sold separately.
My top 2 choices might be considered generic, but I don't care. I friggin' love these games. Holy shit, I love Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. While my memory is pretty terrible, I remember this being my first 3D Sonic game, and it might have been my first Sonic game in general, but again, my memory sucks. I spent so much time playing this game when I first got it, and I still spend a lot of time playing it. The levels are incredibly fun, yes, even the Knuckles and Rouge levels, except for Mad Space and Meteor Hurt. The controls are perfect, at least on a GameCube controller. The story, while flawed, is still enjoyable. And holy shit, that soundtrack! From the iconic Live and Learn, to the new, and in my opinion superior, version of It Doesn't Matter, to Eggman's theme, creatively named Eggman, and of course City Escape, there are so many awesome songs in this game. So many, in fact, that upon re-listening to it for this video, this is my absolute favorite Sonic soundtrack. That's a pretty big claim, especially with the likes of Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic Adventure up against it. And while I love those soundtracks as well, I think Sonic Adventure 2's soundtrack is slightly better. Before we move on to number 1, I want to take a look at some Sonic games that I think are good, but weren't quite good enough to make this list. Sonic Adventure, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Colors, Shadow the Hedgehog, yes really, and Sonic Lost World. Now it's time for number 1. Let's go. It's Sonic Heroes! Nah, I'm just messing with you. Let's look at the real number 1. The final game in the original Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is my favorite Sonic game of all time. Everything that was changed for the better in Sonic 2 was perfected upon in this game. The graphics were better, the levels were better, the music was better, and most important of all, the gameplay as a whole was better. The Insta-Shield was introduced in this game, and while it's not too useful in normal levels, it completely destroys boss fights. Super Sonic returned from Sonic 2, and we were introduced to Hyper Sonic, who hasn't been seen in the game since. Elemental shields were also introduced in this game, and while only the electrical shield would return for the next few games, the bubble and fire shield have returned in recent games. There are more awesome things in this game, but I'm not going to list everything here. Just play the game if you haven't already. And that's it for my top 10 Sonic games list. I hope you all enjoyed watching, because I enjoyed making the video. I don't know how to end this video, so I'm just going to do this.